Hello and welcome back to the channel, Arizona Desert Hobbies. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more videos of me tinkering around with small engines and all kinds of good stuff. Right now we're going to finish up kind of where we left off last time by putting the engine back together. This is a Perler 212. We went with a billet rod. We have a billet flywheel, some 20 foot-pound rings, or 20 pound valve springs. These are the ones that I got, and we're just gonna keep building on it. So I had to wait till I got the pins, the alignment pins in. When I got the motor, it must have already been ripped apart previously, and whoever ripped it apart did not replace the guide pins. So I want to have those on there for alignment, especially, you know, since it kind of has to line up real good on the crank and the camshaft. I did mention that I was going to port and polish the head, and I decided to pump the brakes on that one a little bit. We will get to that. The reason I didn't do it now is because I want a baseline. I want to see with the new springs, the billet rod, the governor delete we had already done. I want to see where it's at. I want to see the power it has. I want to see, you know, how it runs. Plus there's a ton of other stuff I have. I've got an actual pipe with a muffler instead of just a stock muffler. I've got a aftermarket carburetor, something similar to Makuni's, but I want to see where it's going to run with that, all those upgrades, before I go ahead and port it, because I want to see what porting it, how much of a difference it really makes. So I did mark out where I want to. I don't know if you can see that red right here along the line. Basically what I did is I just did a gasket match. I put the gasket on and lined it up with the new intake that I have for the new carb. And what happens is the gasket overlaps the hole on the intake, and you don't want that. So it would line up something like that, where there's an actual lip here, and that lip, when air and fuel is going through there, crashes into that, creates turbulence. You want it to flow good, even when it's lined up on the holes. Now I've already cut this one. What you do is you kind of line up your gasket. You can put the 2 bolts in if you want. You can take a ball peen hammer like this one, and with it lined up, you tap all around the edges, and what it does is it indents and will actually cut the gasket to fit on the port how you need it. And you're saying, how much of a difference does that really make? Well, visually it doesn't make much. That's all that came off of there. That's all that overlapped. But in terms of flow, air doesn't like hitting obstructions. Air doesn't like turning corners. So the whole idea of an engine is basically just a big air compressor. So the flow of air is very important, and you want it to go in and come out as easily as possible. So when it has something like that where it's crashing into the gasket and then it bottlenecks and opens back up, it's just going to create turbulence. And you don't want turbulence. You want smooth flow. I don't know if you can see down in here. Let me see if I can get a light. But I actually marked out where I plan on making some adjustments. If you see that red marker down in there, the air and fuel is going to come up and it's going to hit that and bottleneck before it opens up into the chamber and flows down to the valve. So what I'm eventually going to do is take some grinding bits and smooth the very bottom below the seat there, not take it all the way up to the seat. Sorry. Right there. Reset red line. And I want to clean up just a little bit on the factory casting. So, I mean, they make these things for mass production. Their quality control and top end performance isn't really, you know, a big deal to them. Basically, they get them to where they run and they send them out the door. But when you're going for all out performance, every little bit counts. You can even talk about how you put your spark plug in. I know most people are just going to think, well, you're just going to put the spark plug in and that's fine, right? Well, if you put the spark plug in and the electrode is down facing up, okay, then it's facing away from the fuel and the air charge. If you reference the spark plug by putting a black line right there where the idle strap is, and you tighten it to where it opens up to where the spark is almost going out into the chamber where the fuel and air mix, that can even add a little bit, you know. And when you're working on a budget, or you're just trying to get every last little bit out of there that you can, that's something to consider. So yeah, you kind of want the spark shooting out into the chamber instead of shooting up against the wall. So just a little trick there. But anyway, that's something we're going to do in the future. You can see I marked out some in there. Maybe if I put it this way, you can see I marked the red there, just somewhere I'm going to clean up around where the valve guide is, clean up the walls. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to cup it to where it's like a light bulb is in there. You don't want it to go in, concave around, and then come back out right here where the valve is. You just want it to kind of flow up. You don't want the air and fuel crashing into any walls. You want it to just flow. The smoother the transformation, the better. On the intake side, you do want a little bit of texture on there on the intake, because what happens if the intake is actually too smooth, what'll happen is the fuel will collect and re-dropletize instead of atomize. It will gather, collect, and then go into the cylinder as a liquid, and you almost want it going in as a gas or like a mist, not as in wet fuel droplets. The better the atomization, the better it's going to run. So you can actually put a kind of a light texture. You still want it to flow smooth, the angle going in. However, you don't want it like slicked, polished, if you will. When you hear people say pour it and polish, you really don't want to polish your intake. You want it kind of almost like a golf ball would be perfect. The little dimples that you see on a golf ball. As for the exhaust, that's a little bit different. You're not worried about fuel atomization. All you're worried about is maximum flow. So once the piston goes up, it fires, goes back down, comes to relieve the exhaust. You just want that exhaust to just flow right out. So anyway, back on topic. We're going to put the cam in. I'm going to put the lifters in. The cam, I told you, was it's dyno cams, and it is a 265 cam, and says recommended ignition timing 32 degrees, bottom dead center. Billet flywheel is mandatory. So I'll let you take a picture of that or look at it, write down whatever you want. That's my cam card. And the billet flywheel I have already has 32 degrees of timing built into it. So even though I have the keyways to adjust the timing, I'm not going to need them. So without further ado, I'm just going to stay quiet and start putting this together. So enjoy, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to put your assembly lube on everything. I put some on the other day. However, it's been a couple days. So I will re-lube the cam and the lifters. A little bit of lube on these will help them stick in place while you reassemble the engine. This stuff is about as stringy as hot glue is. Alright, so we got those in. They're not moving. So when you're putting your cam in, always make sure that you line up the 2 points. Not sure how well you can see it, but you've got your dot here on your cam, and you have your dot right there on your crank. You want to line both of those up. So let's spin this 180. Make sure our lifters are still in place. Make sure everything is clean. move this down just a little bit. Right about, and these are on an angle so they don't go straight in. They kind of go in on an angle. I'm on a really weird angle here so that you can see it on the camera. So it's not exactly the easiest. Get in your hole. Oh, come on. It'd be so much easier if I just flip this on his back. There we go. Okay. Now, if you can see it, and I'm not sure that you can, we have our point right here on the cam. We have our point right here on the crank. Those two are lined up. They have to be dead center. If you're off a tooth, that would be bad. You could leave a valve open when the piston comes up and the piston and valve meet, and everybody has a bad day. Sorry about that. Anyway, let me put this light back here. Okay, so piston's at top, dead center. That's also what that means. Piston is right here at the very tippy top, as you can see it, maybe. We got our two marks lined up. Next thing to do would be to put the front cover on. So we've already got the connecting rod in and torqued. I do like to sign the inside of my blocks. That way if I ever sell it, somebody opens it up and I'm like, oh, who's this guy that built it? So Sean from Desert Hobbies. Great. But anyway, let's put on the case. I do have a new gasket for it. I do not recommend any sealer. Basically you want to just put these on dry, and that way if you have to take it apart, you should have no problems. Wait, that's not right. There we go. So it looks like on this one it is the print side out, and it will go right there. And if you ever do have to order replacement dowel pins, I'll let you know right now, the ones that I got are 8mm, and those seem to be too small. So all that was for nothing. So you don't have to have them in there, but they really do help keep things aligned. This motor's ran without them before. And like I said, I'll be in and out of this motor several times doing different performance things and stuff like that. But anyway, so we also want to make sure that we've got a really clean surface for that gasket. So you can take some acetone and a rag, some rubbing alcohol, especially since you're working with all that assembly lube. You want to give it a clean surface to mate to so it'll seal really nice. Like I said, I've already ran this block through the ultrasonic cleaner, but when you're assembling stuff, your hands get greasy, and you can imagine where it goes from there. Alright, so that's good. I do want to put some of this on the gears so that they're not dry on startup. And a 265 cam's not really tiny. It's nothing to sneeze at. It's a decent sized cam, but it's not fully extreme. There we go. At least a little something on there to start up with. Why is this stuff stringy? Alright, so what we're going to do next is clean the face of the case. That same rag. And like I said, no sealant, just gasket. You got to figure too, if you put sealant or too many gaskets or don't have a clean surface, you could be changing the distance that the crank has to seal up against this bearing, which could give it a gap. I did order shims just in case I need it to. You can get those from OMB Warehouse or any mini bike engine place or small motors place. You get a pack of shims. That way you can adjust it. And what you're adjusting is the lash, how much in and out the crank has once it's all put together. You can have a little bit. You really don't want it super tight, but there again, you don't want it loose and clicking around in there either. So I'm going to put 2 bolts in here on the case to help hold my gasket. And I will try and get this started. Also, you want to put maybe just a little bit of lube on the bearings. I already put some on the back one. Put a little bit on the cam, where the cam slides and rides. And then maybe just a little bit right here on the top of the crankshaft where the seal's going to go. Boy, this stuff is goopy. And that way it helps the seal slide on over the crank instead of just binding up or anything like that. So alright, so our gasket's on, everything's lined up. Go ahead and start these a little bit. There we go. And I am going to buzz these in with the drill. They do have a torque spec of 17 foot-pounds. What I'm going to do right now is just put them all in slightly and check the lash of that crank before I go and do a full torque cycle. Okay, now that that's done, we really don't have any, which isn't bad, but you usually do want just a little bit, or a little bit's not bad. Yeah, it really doesn't have any play, so I don't think this motor had much time on it at all. So, okay, what is next? Let me find my foot-pound torque wrench. And set it for 17 foot-pounds. And then we will recheck that. Alright, so this again is a Harbor Freight one. I believe they're made by Pittsburgh. And they're not too bad. Alright, so 10, 15, 16, 17. Now when you're just running those bolts in, I wouldn't say a sequence is really critical, but when you do the case cover, if you don't know, or the engine you're building doesn't have a specific sequence, then start from the center and work your way out. And also go across from one another. Again, that is 17 foot-pounds, not like what we did the connecting rod with, which was 150 inch-pounds. Two completely different forms of measurement there. All right, so that's done. Let me take my head here, and it looks like we still need to put the valve springs in. So and build it, put it back together. So let's start doing that now. Hopefully you can see. If not, we'll make it to where you can, hopefully, without bumping anything. All right. So, here's your head. Maybe. Here's your head. You've got your valves. They are different sizes, so it'd be pretty hard to mess those up. Last time I had this apart, I believe I did I lapped the valves in, and it has very little runtime on there since then, so I'm not worried about redoing those. Don't forget, you do have an oil seal. That is going to go on your intake only. So we'll do that. There's your push rods and your rocker arms. And wipe those out a little bit, they got a little dirty. Yeah, you want to keep your parts clean when you put them back together. You don't want any metal shavings from your drill or sand or dirt or anything like that in there. Try and keep it as clean as possible. And these are just stock. There's nothing special about these. These are what came out of the stock motor. So you got that. Intake studs, which we don't need. And the retainers, which I should have 4. So I got 1, 2, together, 3 and 4, maybe. Clean you up. Now with the stock springs, you can pretty much get away with just using your thumbs to push down, get the retainers out, use a magnet if you want, and go from there. With these aftermarket 22-pound springs, I believe, it might be a little bit more difficult. So this is my intake side. I already pulled the studs out because the new carburetor I have does not require them. So those are going bye-bye, but this is the intake side. So we can go ahead and put the oil seal back down on top of there. Okay, and the intake valve is going to be bigger than the exhaust. So this is the intake, this is the exhaust. You see the difference? It's not much, but there is a difference there. So, bye-bye. Hello. So you can, whoops. Despite the dirt and hair that I just got on there, but you see the difference? The 22-pound springs are taller. The metal looks to be about the same thickness. It feels thicker, but I could be wrong on that. So, but anyway, it's taller. There's more coils in it, and it's supposed to be good for 22 versus 18. Actually, I think the stock is even less. I think it's like 11 pounds. So these are much more rigid. All right. Valve's nice and clean. You can put a little bit of lube. I wouldn't really use that thick, goopy assembly lube because it's just going to gum up your intake. But a little bit of oil is not bad. Everybody likes lube. Anyway, so let's put that up in there through the oil seal. Okay. And then we've got to put that on. So you see quite a bit of difference there. That is much higher. I do have a valve spring compressor, which I think I'm going to get just for ease of doing it on camera. Okay, I take that back, it's buried. Well, I think we can do that. If you put a little grease on these too, it can help them stick. You don't want to put nothing too heavy on them, not a lot, but it will help them stick. Just a little bit, that's all you need. Now if you were doing a 35-pound, watch I launch them through the air and into my face. 35-pound springs, you probably definitely would want a valve spring compressor tool. What was the trick? Put like a socket or something over these? Something like that, seems like I remember. There we go. So line up. We'll try that. We'll put a socket over there. I don't remember what size, but we'll see if it works. Nope, it did not. Probably because I put the grease on there. And also the valve underneath is moving. There we go. I might just have to get that valve spring compressor wherever it is. Where is that other valve? There we go. Helps if you back it with something. As you see, I put that nut under there. So yeah, that's a lot more rigid. The view from the top. Alright, so we will do the same with the other one. Bye bye old. Hello new. Hopefully it goes as easy, if not easier, than that last one. Alright, there's that. Just maybe a little dab of oil. And this is just 30 weight engine oil. It's nothing special. Get you up in your hole. Back you with the nut. Move the spark plug out of the way. There we go when your spark plug's in your way. Put just a little dab of grease on the valve guide, or the valve retainer, just to help stick it there, and then you can push it down with your thumb. Make sure you put it in the right direction. They kind of narrow as they go down, and then you can see up towards the top is where the locking tab is. There you go, sorry. So I'm just putting a little bit of grease on the outer side, slipping it into the valve retainer. It's a little much. just like that, just so it kind of holds them into place. Pushing it over the spring, over the valve, and boom, just like that. That's how it should go. So I didn't need a valve spring compressor on this, but like I said, these are only like 22s. If you're going 36, wow, those are a lot harder to push compared to these. These are nothing. So okay, so now that those are on, let's get our engine block back down here. I've got a new head gasket that I'm going to put on right there and right there. Hopefully you can see that. And then I'm gonna slide this guy on. Make sure it's lined up with those dowels, those hollow dowels. Make sure it doesn't move on you like it's trying to do to me. Hope you guys know how much of a pain in the butt this is. I'm doing this for you. So anyway, all right, so I'll put the bolts in. Go ahead and start those. Did I make sure the intake was clean? I don't think I did. So I'm going to pull that out and just double check. Should be good, but I'm going to double check just in case. Stay. So when I got this one, it was just a little bit tweaked. It'll be fine once it's compressed. Oh yeah, that looks good. Because usually they lay nice and flat. There we go. Alright, and what are we? We are... So the head bolts are 12. Size 12, and my drill is over here. And of course it's made for a different size. So I'm just going to put these down a little bit to snug them. Torque them later. Actually, we could probably torque them now. Let's do that. So these are going to be 17 foot-pounds as well. So just like the cover. Take that off. Put this on. And this is one of those things you're probably going to want to do in steps. So we'll start off at, we'll do 7 all around, and then we'll do 14 all around, and then we'll do 17. Five, 6, 7. Gosh, that's not much at all. Okay, I'll do 14. It doesn't seem like a lot. I might double check that. 10. Get out of here, mosquito. Okay. and 17. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So now we can put our push rods in. If I didn't bend them. Make sure they're nice and clean. Put a little dab of that braking oil in there. Actually, I don't want to use that. Or not braking oil. I'm sorry. The assembly lube. Just a little dap there on the top where they make contact with the lifters. Make sure it's all the way down and seated. If you can even see down there. I know it's hard to, but make sure they're down there, sitting on top of the lifter. Probably just got to take my word for it. That one is, and that one is as well. All right. For good measure, I can throw a couple pumps of oil down there as well. Okay. So next, we need our, not that, rocker arms and our retaining nuts. Shoot a little oil in there. What does that seem? Ah, there we go. Caught on the edge, or it wasn't seated. I pulled it out earlier. It did that. Okay. That. The good thing about those ultrasonic cleaners is you can pretty much throw all this stuff in there if you have a big enough one. I believe I've got the 10-quart one, and the only thing that doesn't fit right below the water is the block. But you do a couple cycles, you turn it on, do a cycle, flip the block over, do a cycle, and so on and so forth. So I think I'm gonna end it right here. So we've got the cover on, cam in, the lifters in there. We didn't need to shim the crank, which is good. Got our valves in, brand new 22-pound valve springs, the retainers, the rocker arms, and the nuts on the studs. Then these will go on after that, and that's just about it. We have our new head gasket in there. We torqued our head down to 17 foot-pounds, which I'm going to double check because that seemed a little bit on the light side, but it might be correct. And we're going to go from there. So I'm just going to wrap this up. I'll show you valve lash, checking and adjusting that in another video, because I have to look it up. I believe it's 3 thousandths on intake and 4 on exhaust, but don't quote me on that. I will check and I will come back and do that. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Hope you liked it. Hope you learned something. And like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.